Welcome to Oregon Voters Digest, the program that brings forward the social and political issues that are important to people living here in the Pacific Northwest. And now, your host, Bruce Broussard.
Welcome again to this segment of the Oregon Voters Digest. I'm Bruce Broussard, your host today. Folks, it's raining outside. I mean, it's really raining out. It's pouring down rain outside. And for those of you who have been who are really into the sports of it all, I mean, I guess New England just won one of the pieces. So they're in, if you will, in the Super Bowl. And then I guess we've got Frisco and the other. They're going to be fighting it for days. But anyway, the bottom line is this: everybody's pretty well busy. But let me say this: I think we're going to have a very interesting show today. And for those of you who just feel that you just can't continue to watch the show for the entire hour, I would recommend that you go to YouTube. Go to YouTube and pick up the entire show because it's a good deal, okay? That's YouTube. Again, YouTube / there we go. There it is right there on the screen. All you have to do is just make a note to yourself, and then after the game and whatever, you can look at the show and see what you think, okay? Well, now, let's get on with the show. I've got two segments that I think I'd like to share with you today, one of which is if you notice, I sort of held back on the debates of late, the Republican debates for president, because I feel that there's a lot of things happening, but I feel now that maybe we might want to chat a little bit about that, and that's a good entree. There's a lot more to be had there. President Obama, on the other hand, on the Democratic side, he'll be doing his State of the Union address next week, and I would suggest that you maybe look at that. So, hey, we're ready, and we're ready to go. And so as an entree to that, I've got a very knowledgeable person, someone that I've known for years about this piece, and she's out there. She's an activist. She's a community leader. I mean, really, in all due respect, folks, she's very committed, if you will, to a better way of life here within our city, within our state, within our country, for that matter. And I'm talking no other than Renee, okay? And here's Renee. How you doing, Renee?
Fine.
You like that one? You like
yes,
that?
That's good.
Good. And how you doing, first off?
Pretty good. Feeling healthier and getting back on board and back into cable access after about a year of laying off of it.
So what are you doing with your show? You're doing the show now?
No, actually, I'm just at the moment I'm just transferring the show over to digital files so we can put it on the internet. So it's 2 years of shows, and then what we're going to be looking at is probably doing another show like that, but probably a little bit edgier, a little bit more gritty in regard to confronting some things politically, not so much from a party standpoint, but from an issue and from a principle standpoint.
Oh, good.
So,
good. Well, I do know that, and I know for a fact that you are part and parcel of like myself. We're very much in the politics of it all. And like yourself, we've sort of held back until all of the so-called rigmarole goes out the way, and then we've got something to work with, right?
Yeah, fair? We can actually not hold our nose,
right,
and vote for.
Right. You know, recently I did a piece on Ron Paul, in the Occupy Portland as opposed to Occupy Wall Street, and we talked about, if you will, the Ron Paul campaign. There were several people that were part of the interview that they were involved in the Ron Paul deal. And I'd gotten a lot of calls about that particular show, and got a lot of hits, if you will, from YouTube. And I thought it was very interesting about how they, in fact, had come within the community on the Occupy Portland and actually helped set it up in a very legal way. Basically organize it, make sure that there was medical situations there, et cetera, et cetera. And then, as you note, some other entities actually got more involved. We have a homeless problem in this city, and then they got involved in the process, and then it kind of went this, that, and the other. At the end of the day, it was there, but the thing I was sort of impressed, the fact that I did not realize, but the public now knew that, in fact, that it was those folks that were very much involved to make sure that it was done in a legitimate way on the front end of that situation. And so I was very impressed with it. But I also had the opportunity naturally to talk to some about the Ron Paul issues and whatever, and I thought that was a good thing.
Yeah, there were a number of people who were involved with the the Occupy Portland thing who were Ron Paul supporters. I'm not sure whether they really had a whole lot to do with the running of it. I think they were just there because they wanted to support the fact that people were standing up.
From an organizing standpoint,
Yeah.
that's what I was saying, just from an organizing. And I thought that was a good thing.
Yeah.
You got me? So anyway, because of again, like I say, with the debates that are going on at this point in time, trying to figure out who's going to be the representative from the Republican Party side, and it's a very interesting piece. And I'll say this, and then we'll get into it. But I guess there are 4 dominant individuals at this point in time after the South Carolina deal, whatever. And it seems, well, Gingrich won the piece. He won it. Then you had Mitch, the governor, who won this. He was number 2, and then Sorensen was it was Sorensen number 3, and then Ron Paul was number 4. And it was interesting how all that sort of evolved, if you will, and how the back and forth and this, that, and the other of the various.
Well, it's very interesting to look at it, especially with Gingrich winning by such a margin.
Right.
When in the background, from what I remember, 60% of the people polled, Republicans polled, don't think he's electable. So my mind is having a little bit of trouble wrapping around the fact that he won by such a great margin, when 60% of the people don't think he can win the election. So, I'm not holding out a great lot of hope right now with the hanging Chad situation. Let's put it that way.
But that last debate that occurred, I think that was CNN. Mm-hmm. That was CNN. It was John King, I think, did the interview of that last debate, and he started out his questions, if you will, directed it to Newt Gingrich, and went into his personal life aspect of it, about his former marriage, et cetera, et cetera. But all of a sudden, it was like Newt it was like a boom. He just got back at the front of the line. He just jumped all on media. He brought media back. And then, as you know, the previous debate that was held on the tube, again, that was by Fox, Juan Williams. He brought up, he too went through the same process and challenged Newt on another personal issue aspect of it, from a African American standpoint, a minority standpoint, asked that kind of a question, and then Newt took advantage of that piece. And it seems as though the people just jumped right on it. I mean, Newt for days his position has been the press. And
but I think people.
About the press. What do you think about?
Well, I think people have to, take a step back. Obama, Newt Gingrich, all these people. Mm-hmm. What have they said in the past, and what have they actually done? Let's look at a track record here.
Okay.
So, Contract with America was a good idea. But if you're not even going to push your own, if you're not even going to push your own good idea, do I really think you're serious about freedom? I mean, come on. Mm-hmm. I mean, people have to stop listening to the words and start listening to what are these people actually doing? What's their past track record? What have they said, and what have they actually done? And that's the dots that people need to start connecting. And if you look at people like Ron Paul, he's saying exactly the same thing he was saying 30 years ago.
What are some of the areas that you feel real comfortable about with Ron Lee?
With Ron Paul, the most important area for me is that he wants to get back to playing by the rules. In other words, hey, how about we get back to what the Constitution says we should do, and get back to giving the states back the powers that have been taken away from them through the process of, first removing their senators from making it a popular vote for senators instead of the legislature used to elect the senators of a state. Mm-hmm. And when the legislature elected the senators, you can rest assured those senators were just gung-ho about protecting the interests of the states and serving their state and making sure they got the best bang for the buck for their particular state. Well, once you make that an open situation where you have a popular vote, that's when the special interests just jumped on board and said, you beauty. We don't have to worry about the states having powers, and we don't have to worry about the states' interests anymore. All we have to do is get to the senators and make sure that they come along with our special interests. So when those kinds of things happen and you start changing the rules to benefit the big-time players, then you're down a world of worry. And with Ron Paul, the big thing is he wants to, let's go back to the rules. Let's go back to when we had control of the bureaucracy, and the bureaucracy was not running the show.
You know what I found? Another interesting thing, there was one little shoot on one of the media pieces that showed Ron when he went back to vote. Mm-hmm. And he was, they showed him handing out in signing out copies of the Constitution to the kids. I mean,
Yeah.
to the young people.
It's like, hello.
And then I noticed you've done that before in the
Yeah.
past with me. You've given me several copies of that deal. And my question to you is that how many people do you think? What do you think of the percentage of the American public that have an understanding about what is the Constitution?
Let's talk about the percentage of people who've actually ever read it.
Okay. What do you think? What do you think?
1%.
1%.
Maybe.
Okay.
Maybe 1%. They don't teach it in school anymore. You understand?
Oh, really?
And I mean, if you go to the library, go to any of your branch libraries and look up the Constitution and see what you come up with as copies in your library. You're going to come up with two things. You're going to come up with probably one copy of the Constitution and the Bill of Rights as it is, and then you're going to come up with 45 copies, especially for children, on how we should interpret the Constitution and how we should protect our democracy. So this is kind of interpreting the Constitution in a means that is inappropriate. We don't have a democracy. Why are you talking about that?
What do you think about the candidates that are running, the Republican candidates that are running for IE to be the representative of the Republican Party in the presidential election? How many of those? I know Paul already understands the Constitution. Of the rest, I mean, how aware are they about the Constitution?
You can count on one hand.
Really?
Oh yeah. I mean, look, if they were aware of the Constitution, then one of two things is either happening. They're either lying or they're stupid. If you know about the Constitution and you still keep promoting what's going on, then you've got to be a liar. Or if you don't know about the Constitution and you keep promoting what's going on, the Patriot Act, the National Health Care Act, it could go on forever. The ruling that they just had that destroyed posse comitatus, and basically we can be killed anywhere, anytime, for anything. So if you know the rules and you're going along with this, what are you? What spawn of hell did you come from? And if you don't know the rules and you're going along with it, might be nice if you read the rule book. So, you look at the situation and you've got one of two choices. It's got to be one or the other. Either you know the rules and you're just flat out ignoring them, or you don't know the rules and you're just going along with the program.
Okay, then on the other side of the deal, we've got the interviewers, if you will, the press. The
press.
CNN, Fox,
Yes.
ABC, the whole
with their choke chain.
Now, what about them? Do you think they're familiar with the Constitution?
Oh, God, no. I mean, really. They haven't a clue. Probably less of a clue.
But that would have been a nice vehicle to introduce the Constitution and bring it back to the table, at the front table, let people be aware of it, right?
Look, you have to understand that everybody's kind of in bed with everybody else. The press can't expose anything without losing access. So, are they going to expose anything? Are they going to tell people, hey, they're doing stuff wrong, they're doing it, they're unconstitutional? Of course not. They want access. So you have to make a choice when you're with the media. Do I want access or do I want to tell the truth? So if you're caught between that rock and that hard place, who's going to tell the truth?
Okay, let's go down the line. Okay, now we everybody knows about the visual. You and I, but I mean, that's something that we have to do, right? We have to be aware of. But then we've got print media, and then we got radio, audible media. Let's go right down the line. Of the population, what do you think, percentage-wise, of the population actually, let's say, would view, if you will, the visual concept, like the Fox and the CNN? What do you think?
I think it's really age designated anymore, extremely age designated anymore.
Okay.
I would, from what I've heard, the pollsters say, and I don't really put a whole lot of stock at pollsters because you can make a survey say anything you want to if you do it right. Most people are now getting their political information from the internet.
From the internet.
And from their friends. So, again, is it good? Is it bad? I don't know. But that seems to be the source from the pollsters.
But like you say, the internet, like what? Why the internet?
I think it's fast. It's immediate. You can pick
Google
a lot of stuff really quickly, but also at the same time, you're also pulling in, a handful of garbage with a handful of diamonds at the same time. So you have a lot more filtering to do, your personal filtering, when you look at the internet media than you did with, say, newspapers. Newspapers, you know who the editor was, you know what the program was, you know what their biases are. So if you got 5 different newspapers and they all had different biases, you were getting a very well-rounded view. But on the internet, you don't know what's going on. Unless you go to specific pundits and follow their particular views, then you're aware of their particular prejudices and agendas. We all have it.
What about radio?
Radio, I think, is probably not where people are getting a whole lot of their information. I think what they're getting off radio is reinforcement and corroboration of their own opinions. I think they're listening to the people who agree with them. They're not using radio to listen to the other side. And it's really hard. I mean, if you listen to the programs, it's like, okay, I've just wasted 42 minutes and I've gotten about 30 seconds worth of information. Ho-hum, I think I'm going to go back to the internet. So I think it's a medium like the newspapers that it's not outlived its usefulness, but it's going to have to do some major reinvention if it's going to get eyeballs again.
You know, the other thing I notice is that when I think about the interviewers, you know, we're both in that same business aspect of it. I noticed that what I just did a little thing, a little person review, and I went out and I Googled the Chris Wallace of the world. I Googled the Warren Williams, and I Googled the John King, you know, right on down the line, the Rush Limbaugh and this, that, and the other. But there's nothing about their personal life on that, nor do they identify
Isn't that funny?
Or identify what parties they represent.
My. There's personal information about every living person on the planet. I mean, you could probably find out about...
Oh, I'm on it. You're on it. I mean, you Google me,
but
Jesus
not
Christ. But
the media, folks.
But I don't get any opportunity to talk about what I'm all about, right?
No.
It's just a...
No.
Well, you know, but I mean, but you understand what I'm saying? But I noticed there's nothing that you would think... Now, let's put it this way. If... I've not done this yet, but had I known in the past, when I was being interviewed by some of these people, I should have asked the question, what party are you affiliated with?
Yeah. Good. I'm sure they would have answered.
Then I would have made the statement, okay, fine, if you won't tell me, no interview.
Yeah.
You get my point? See?
Yeah.
I mean, there are some biases.
Well,
we're still human beings, right?
They try, but they try and position themselves as, you know, the great washed middle who's objective and aloof and above all prejudice and bias. And I mean, if I hear one more time, oh, you know, Fox News, fair, and, you know, what their logo is, it's like, and everybody's saying, oh, they're so biased, they're so biased. It's like, hello, have you looked at OPB lately? You know? Right. Bias? Okay, just a little bit here. So you have to understand, you have to accept the bias and admit the bias, and then you can learn. But as long as you're sitting there saying, oh, Fox is not biased, oh, OPB is not biased, you're kidding yourself. You're lying to yourself.
Well, you know, again, on that same note, you think about, it's sort of like a well-known within the ring that Fox is Republican. They sort of make that assumption, and CNN is Democrat.
Yeah, but I wish. That's the whole thing. I mean, they're not so much politically aligned as power aligned. They're not Republican or Democrat. They're aligned with whoever happens to have the most power, who can grant them the greatest number of whatever they want. So people have to stop looking at media as if it's unbiased and it's, you know, some kind of holy grail that whatever comes out, spews out of these mouths in the square box is somehow holy and of God, of universe and truth. I think people have to start understanding and stop acquiescing to authority. I think that's one of our biggest problems. As an example, they did this research study in the 1960s. You probably heard of it, where they had a person in the other room and somebody else egging this person on to keep shocking them more and more and more, no matter how much that other person was screaming and yelling. And in the 1960s, only 1/3 of the people went all the way when they were egged on by authority. And they redid that, I think about 2 years ago, and 92% of the people went all the way and shocked the person on the other side, who really wasn't being shocked at all, but sounded like they were. They went all the way to the maximum. So that's a clear indication in the last 40, 50 years of how much we have absolved ourselves of personal responsibility and handed that over to anyone who looks like an authority figure, and that's what that square box is.
Wow. You know, again, on that same particular line, I'll ask you some questions like, for instance, we know for a fact that when you hear these quotes about how much money a candidate has. You know, it's going to be $1 billion campaign, or just say local. And it's local congressional. It said each of the candidates going to be spending about $1 million. Well, where's the money going? In most cases, media. That's where the bulk of the money is, right? And then you've got staff. And in many cases, those staff folks are Republicans. It's about just a job. It's just making some bucks.
Basically, I think that...
What about the volunteerism at one point?
There's I think that there are a lot of people who are volunteering on both sides of the aisle because, A, they're scared pooless about what's coming down, and they can see, you know, the sword of Damocles hanging over their head going, okay, which way is it going to swing? And they want to do something. The problem is that the something that the collectivist organization wants is, let's do this and make everybody uniform and we'll all be the same and we'll all be happy and eating tofu and, you know, going and doing our particular thing and saving water. And I'm not saying that all of that stuff is not valid and not useful. I'm saying it's only part of the picture. So each little group is trying to commandeer their people into following their program. There's not anybody out there who's interested in you following your path. So for me, is that freedom? That's not freedom. So people have to start judging for themselves. Is this person, this organization, this group, these politic people, do they want me to make decisions about my own life and have control over my own life? Or do they want to have control over my life and tell me what's best for me? And if people started asking that question when people are telling them what they should do, how they should act, where they should go, what they should eat, I think they'd be a lot more circumspect about how they answer.
Okay. Well, then, again, on that same note, how do you think a campaign should be run in terms of one, the candidates? What do you think the definition of a candidate should be? And let's say
a candidate
and the application of a candidate. I mean, you know, what should it look like?
Well, first of all, it would be really, really nice if they started out with to serve.
To serve.
Not to govern. Okay, let's start with the basics. Okay, you have to have a service mentality, not a ruling mentality. That's the first thing that you want to look for in a candidate.
What do you mean by that?
Somebody who wants to go in there and protect your interest rather than going in to figure out the game so that they can benefit themselves and their special interest. If you're focused on increasing the net amount of freedom for everybody, then you're sincerely looking at serving someone. You're serving the position of helping other people to be free. But if you want to just rule, then you're going to tell that person how they should be free. We want you to be free to eat what you want to eat as long as it's tofu. We want you to be free to eat as long as it's beef. It's just as bad. Nobody wants to be told what to eat. They want to eat what they want to eat and what makes them healthy and makes them feel good. And that's the first thing that I look for in a candidate. Is this person all about serving, or is this person all about ruling?
Should that be in the filing process?
No.
Should they be laid out in terms of
where it should be is individual groups of entrepreneurial people having seminars and asking questions that are gonna bring this kind of stuff out. You can tell really quickly where someone is focused if you ask the right questions.
Come on here, crew. You got something for me?
We got a crew. Okay.
This is
okay. Oh,
the
redistricting stuff.
This is
okay.
Public television. Okay. Oh, gee whiz. Okay. Change registration. Okay. Click on my vote.
Can we plug him?
Well, let's see. We could. Maybe we could.
Okay. For those of you who are not registered Republican, but think Ron Paul is the bee's knees and would love to at least have a say in supporting what he believes, the only opportunity you're going to get to do that, the only opportunity you may ever have in your entire life, is if you bite the bullet, go online and change your registration to Republican, because only Republicans can vote in the Republican primary. So, look, it's a label. It's a label. I am Renee Daphne Kimball. I am not Renee Daphne Kimball, the Republican. Renee Daphne Kimball, the person who lives in Selwood. That's my label. You know, the Renee Daphne Kimball, the person who lost 50 pounds. That's a label. I don't vote my label. I vote my principles. And that's what people have to start understanding. Look, I don't care if you change your registration back 15 seconds after you get done voting. I don't care. But if you want to vote for Ron Paul, if you want to send a very clear message that we don't like what you're doing, we don't like where you're going, and we want you to sit up and take notice, then your opportunity is to vote for Ron Paul.
Why do you think he has? I mean, the following, the folks that are with him. I mean, they're really solid behind him. Why is that, do you think?
Because I think people are becoming more and more able to tell when somebody is handing you a pile of meadow muffins and when they're telling you the truth.
Gee, that's
So, I mean, if you're talking to somebody and you're having a conversation and every cell in your body is going, God, this guy, ooh, I sleep. Oh, this person just makes me feel uncomfortable. I can't tell whether they're telling me the truth or not.
Okay.
You're not going to be real happy with it. But if you meet somebody who's saying, yeah, all the things that you believed and you've heard and you know to be true, and they're saying stuff that resonates deep in your soul as being the cause of what's going on, you're going to know that. People aren't stupid. I'm tired of the bureaucrats and the politicians treating people like they're dummies. They're not.
So there's a movement.
Yes, and it's not just a Ron Paul movement.
Okay.
It's a movement of, we want the truth and we want it now. We're tired of your sales pitch. We're tired of your schmoozing. We're tired of your benefits. We're tired of your carrots. Give us the truth. We're big people and we can take it. And I think that's why people are resonating to him. He's saying the truth.
You know, you're really making a good point, because even as I've seen all the debates and whatever, and I see the ups and the downs, and whether it be the Romney to start off with, or maybe Newt, or right on down the line.
Yeah.
But it seems as though the people are constantly looking at what's happening on an ongoing basis. And like that last piece aspect of it, they just didn't like the idea of media jumping in somebody's personal. Not that it wasn't wrong, but it's just how it was done. You got me? As opposed to saying, okay, fine, what are the issues?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, if what the person is doing in their own personal life is ineffective in taking over any of their, if it's not affecting their business, and it's not affecting their, their ability to represent us.
Right.
It's really not my business. I don't care about it. I mean, if you're, giving head in the Oval Office, I have a problem. Because, what are you doing? I mean, you want to go outside and, on your own time and your own property.
But that couldn't happen today, though. I mean, with all of the folks that are running around.
Yeah, it could.
Really?
Yeah, it could.
Really?
Look.
Come on now.
Well, let's put it this way. You think that was the first time? I mean, everybody covers everything up. Look, Franklin Delano Roosevelt was a cripple. Hello, and nobody knew it. Half the population didn't even know that. So, yeah, are we capable of covering it up? Oh, we're capable of covering up everything.
Maybe more so today as opposed to then?
I think we have more capability of covering it up and photoshopping it out of existence. I mean, we didn't have Photoshop 50 years ago. So
but everybody's looking for a news flash. You know what I mean?
Well, you can create a news flash real quick. Just get yourself a copy of Photoshop and away you go.
Oh, wow.
I mean, and people have to start being more conscious of what they're allowing to ooze into their brain from that little square box, and not just because it comes from the square box and it's from the channel that I love, that it's holy and pure and 100% true.
Well, now we're thinking about, I got about another minute or so at this point in time, but I want you to come back on. And the reason I'd like to talk a little bit about the present structure we have. We have two major parties. Again, we have other parties. We got the Green parties. But the bottom is, what is that all about, and where are we going, if you will, with these two major parties and whatever? In fact, where are we going? Because things are, it's crazy out there right now.
Yeah.
So I'd like to see if we can talk about how did we start this stuff, and where do you think we're going? You think we can come back and talk about that?
Sure, love to.
Let's do that, okay?
All right, great.
Renee, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Folks, it's been Renee Kimball and I, and we've been chatting a little bit. Hopefully you got some insight in this piece. And by the way, I would recommend very strongly that you get together with your family members and neighbors and this, that, and the other, and have the same discussion that she and I have had. And at the same time, like I say, you can Google this piece right here on YouTube, if you will. Do the YouTube piece and get a feel for what do you think the format should be. You got a good example. Good? Is that fair, Renee?
Excellent.
Good. Okay, we're going to take a short break, and then we'll be back with my second guest.
You are watching Oregon Voters Digest. This program can be seen again on these channels on these dates and times. Tell a friend.
Morning.
Did you read it?
Please stop the bleeding. At a time when the Oregon Department of Transportation is laying off people, saying they can't maintain the current highway system and have virtually no money for new projects, it's a bad idea to keep spending more than $1 million a month on a project that may never get built.
This group is not saying this is the one or this is the one, this is the one. What we are saying is that ain't the one, and there are at least 3 better alternatives that need to be looked at before this behemoth puts us into a financial hole we may never get out of.
This is a bridge project to nowhere. We have to stop where we're going. It's a steamroller headed off a cliff.
After 7 years and more than $130 million of spending, the Columbia River Crossing project still lacks a sound financial plan. In fact, the project will cost upwards of $10 billion to the region over the next 30 years when you add in the costs of the construction, the interest, the toll collection, and the other projects that this project will necessitate. And finally, this project's finances are based on wildly inaccurate forecasts of traffic over I-5.
If it's not going to be done well, we're going to end up with more traffic and more pollution in my community, and that's not okay.
But the day the CRC would open, we'd still have a bottleneck all up and down southbound I-5 that we wouldn't have solved. We can do better than this, and I hope we stop spending millions before we commit to a multi-billion-dollar mistake.
It won't relieve traffic congestion because, as I mentioned, I-5 is already full. You've only got to listen to the daily traffic reports to realize that the entire Portland freeway network is fairly congested. And it won't provide many jobs because it demolishes almost as many businesses as the jobs required to build a new bridge.
As much as I enjoy using transit, I even enjoy using rail when it works properly. This particular scheme is actually designed to make things worse. Our mayor in Portland has said, well, if there's no rail, then there's no project. I'm fine with that. Kill the rail part, and there's no project. Start over, start with something that would actually work.
We're close to getting stuck. My fear is we get to a point of no return and somebody says, oh, we spent so much, we got to press on. But we're not there yet. There's still time for our legislators to have a look at this and look at some of the other alternatives that cost less than we can afford.
And we urge you today to take notice of the preponderance of this evidence and to stop and call a timeout to this project before billions of taxpayer dollars are spent.
So thank you very much, and enjoy the day and envision something better than what has been proposed.
Welcome back, folks. Again, as you notice, my guest today, Sharon Nassett, happened to be the last person who spoke on that particular video that you just saw. And I think it's important because in today's Oregonian's editorial, Sunday Oregonian editorial, their headlines reads, "It's time to invest in a bridge. The call for the full legislature engagement is crucial if the Columbia River crossing is to win federal funding." That's normally the CRC half of it piece, and it talks to that because the Oregonian actually supported, if you will, the CRC. Now there's the other side to it, and the other option, which has been out there, but maybe has not given that much flair. As you can see, it's very, very important. You saw the people that were identified in the video. They were folks who were very, very much involved, et cetera, Oregonians, Washingtonians, I mean, across the board, politios, business folks, residential folks, the whole nine yards. Well, I guess what? I've got one of the key players, if you will, in that whole Start a Bridge project group, if you will, and I'm talking about Sharon Nassett, and she's with me today. And what we're going to do now is that we're just going to go on and give her the opportunity to share their position, and where do we go from here? Sharon, welcome again.
Well, it's nice to see you, Bruce.
Always
Thank
great.
you.
Yes. What are you doing right now?
Well, lots of stuff.
What are you doing right now? Doing fine? Everything's cool?
Everything's cool.
Good,
Matter of fact, things are better than ever.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Well, I like it. So good.
Yeah.
So you're on the ball. Okay.
I am.
So let's talk about that. You shared the video. We shared the video with the viewing audience. Now, what does that mean? Now, where do you go from here?
Well, the video was of a news conference, press conference, that the Smarter Bridge Committee did. The Smarter Bridge Committee has been meeting for quite a while. We have the whole spectrum. We call it the Green Tea Party.
And by the way, let's not forget Ron. Ron Buell.
Oh, Ron Buell
is very key to this whole process aspect of it. He's kind of like recuperating a little bit on a little medical situation. Ron, how you doing, buddy? You get well quick so we can get you back on here, okay? Take care and have a good one, bud. Okay, now.
Yes, so Ron is very important. He is the chairman of the group.
Right.
It has elected officials, and there's about 24 people in the group, or so, in our committee, excuse me. And there are, we don't necessarily identify the different members. They can say if they are a member or not because of the political climate.
But they're both sides, but there's some obvious political folks on both sides of the aisles, right? And Oregon and Washington, right?
Oregon and Washington, and elected officials that are Republican and Democrat. And like I said, we call ourselves the Green Tea Party quite a bit when we're talking. And what we know is, in your gut and in every manner, that the Columbia River crossing project is wrong.
Okay.
Wrong location, wrong size, wrong price.
Why haven't they listened to you?
Well, they
Given
have.
the same billing. What about why not the same billing during that time?
Well, those with the gold rule. And right now, that is the larger problem. And I'm going to start with our takeaway, which is the Columbia River crossing, which was supposed to be a $50 million project, which is already topped out over $140 million.
Wow.
So it was supposed to be a $50 million
that's
study.
bridge money. That's structure money. That's structure money?
No, for studying. Studying and 30% engineering. But as you remember, the first bridge they engineered was so faulty that it had no merits and could not be fixed at all. And so they are starting again with some of their engineering. But this is just study. The majority of it is study. So it's supposed to be $50 million. And they're now up to...
part of the $140 million?
Total. The whole...
It's $140 million.
Now it's $140. It was... Okay. I come to your house.
Money is the thing.
I come to your house
and
I give you a scope and I say, for $50 million, I will do this.
Okay.
And I'll get it done in 3 years.
Okay. All right.
Okay. 7 years later, and it's $140 million, and the scope has not changed at all.
These are taxpayer dollars.
And these are taxpayer dollars.
Coming from?
From Oregon and Washington, and from Oregon's general transportation dollars, or transportation dollars. The Oregon legislators are only recently becoming involved in this because they did not realize that ODOT has been funding...
And ODOT is?
Oregon Department of Transportation, I beg your pardon, has funded the Columbia River crossing portion for our state out of ODOT's budget.
$140 million?
No, they're half.
Half?
They're supposed to be in it for about let's see, the federal has 15, government has 15 million, the feds do. 88 million has come from the Washington legislators, and the Oregon legislation is behind in money.
Now,
so when you do that,
WashDOT, NODOT, or is it the legislature?
Okay.
You said ODOT was
I beg your pardon.
funded the deal, and then you said...
Yes. Well, ODOT received its fund from the Oregon legislators.
Okay.
And they say, here's the money, fix potholes, do bridges, do whatever you're going to do.
Okay.
And they get a big pot of money.
Right.
Okay. Out of that pot of money is what they have been using to study CRC.
Now, was that designated money? Was that designated money?
Not for the project, no. Usually what happens is you get the money from the Oregon legislators. They say, okay, you're going to do this project, and they also give you an oversight committee, and they start supplying funds.
Okay.
There's been no oversight and no oversight committee because all of this time, the Columbia River crossing money from the Oregon side has been coming out of Oregon's highway funds.
Well, I'm a layperson.
Those new signs that you say that say call in potholes, state potholes, that have never arrived before. So the money that you would do potholes, that you would state.
Right. That's what they've approved. That's what they approved. Right.
Well, but state highways, state all the other stuff, everything in the state that needs to be worked on and done, that receives several state funds.
Okay.
They've been taking a little bit out of each of those for the last 7 years.
Well, where's the legislature? Aren't they aware that?
No, they weren't. Because of no oversight committee.
But that's what we elect these folks to do.
Well, ODOT receives a budget. $850 million was this year to go out and take care of the transportation needs of the state.
Okay.
Okay. In that, they are able to move their budget around how they want to pay for this or not pay for that and so forth and so on, cut back on things, time things, and so forth. So that is where they have been taking
Wait a
money.
minute, this is a very important point. Now, normally when they present a budget, if you will, to the legislature, there are line items with X number of dollars behind each of the items. And then they approve that. And then they get the money. And then they're supposed to go down each item and say, bang, spent this, spent this, spent this. Now, what I'm hearing is that, maybe I'm confused, this other money for the bridge project piece, for the bridge piece aspect, that wasn't one of the items. That's what I'm understanding.
It was probably one of the items.
It was one of the line items?
It possibly was. But you can start out saying, gee whiz, we're putting $10 million into this, and then things happen and you just change it yourself. Well, you've already been given the money. And how the oversight...
But when they change it, do they send... If they want to go on and put together a change order, wouldn't you think you would send it back to the legislature? I need another $30 million?
I am not sure, and we should have the Ways and Means here because they should be explaining why somebody hasn't been looking at ODOT's budget for a while and realizing that there was no oversight committee and they were getting their funds directly out of it.
Okay, well, you need to look at that, okay?
Okay.
Public wants to know.
Okay, so
keep going.
I'll put a little star next to that one.
Okay.
So right now, you talked about this article. The reason it has come out is people need to go to their phones and call their Oregon legislators and their Washington legislators today, tonight, and tell them that they do not want the Columbia River crossing project to continue spending money. Most people think since the study is over, they're not still spending about $2 million a month or more.
To what?
Approximately $2 million a month, even though their study is finished. And that is so that they can continue with the project they want. Now, we don't have...
What are they spending on?
Drilling holes, engineering, talk is purchasing property. And here is the point. The study, 95% of all the study data can be reused on another study. Any money that is being spent right now on development is down the hole. We don't have federal money, and we may not have reauthorization of our transportation money until the end of 2013, which is federal funds. So if we aren't going to have those funds for at least a couple more years, perhaps, and we don't have Oregon funds, plus we really don't have the stakeholders wanting this to happen, they are spending money and continuing going forward. When we do get money, the project's going to look different because it'll be a different amount of money, just like this Plan B they just came up with. And lawsuits from the Record of Decision have not come in yet. Those could change it. So you have all these different things that could be changing it. So for them to end the study and then just continue on with what they decided on is what's going on. Now, if people, and the reason this newspaper article said, oh, well, the February Oregon legislation, they really need to be focused on education and health, was because they don't want you to know that your legislators by 5 o'clock tomorrow, if they're going to do some kind of bill or something, have to have it in because that's the deadline. So they are saying, oh, they can't focus on CRC. Well, the truth is, all that money that is going to that could be going into our jobs for
the deficit
for transportation issues, and next year they could need less money in ODOT and WADOT, and education and health could be getting more funds. So they're saying, oh, well, that's the transportation dollars. Yes, but if they needed less transportation dollars, they would have less. So people need to go and call their Oregon legislators. Both sides of the aisles have been.
Are they doing the same thing? Washington's doing the same thing.
Oregon and Washington. Washington's a little different, and that's. So I was in Olympia on Thursday. I got to tell you, the draw's dropping when they said, well, we are a large organization that deals with $1 million worth of the properties. It's not like we can walk up to a computer, push a button, and have the funds drop out to where everything's been going.
What?
Thank you. Whatever happened to the land of Microsoft? Whatever happened to an express sheet?
That's not what the IRS tells the average person when you know what I'm saying?
Well, that's what most businesses. I mean, if I was telling you, your business is so hoity-toity.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. You have no profits and loss sheets. You have well, we have no profits. Well, you do have expenditures, you do have claims, and you do have losses.
That's why I don't have to file, right?
And then they were talking about, oh, well, some of their things are from 93, some of their computers, and some of them from 96, and if their computers were better, they would, it's like, Excel, one more column, push the button.
Wow.
They could just buy a program.
Well, tell me this, and one thing we make sure we address also to the viewing audience is that, is the Starter Bridge project Smarter Bridge project opposed? Are you going to looking at? Do you have another option to build a bridge across the crossing, or is it just something you're just antagonizing the CRC? What's the deal?
Smarter Bridge project is about retaining jobs.
Okay.
Building something quicker, faster, better, and that we can afford.
Okay.
It is a group of 5 different alternatives.
I know you did this before, but I think it's important to
have been removed or were not studied.
Okay.
That are reasonable and should have been studied. And here is the thing. The Columbia River crossing is taking 89 businesses and nearly over 300 pieces of property. We're not sure if it's close to 4. On Jansen Beach alone, where you live, over 600 jobs are going to be gone. 600 permanent jobs. And then there are 50 businesses on the Vancouver side. So we know that there's at least 915 jobs that are going to be gone, as well as 7 to 11 years of construction on I-5. Plus the fact of all this construction is going to damage the businesses indirectly around them who don't want to go up with it.
But the union, and I'm not trying to cut you off, but the union is talking as if you guys are you're not going to be providing jobs with the Smarter Bridge project.
And see,
what's that all about?
Well, actually, people need to talk to the unions because the union leaders have refused to meet with us. Period.
But you're going to be providing jobs, right?
We'll be providing more jobs, and we won't be taking away 915 to start with.
Okay.
And since we don't have to remove people's homes, and most of the land is bare, vacant, and publicly owned for several of the projects, we can start immediately.
Any idea of in terms of the number of jobs as the comparison? You know, how many jobs is CRC going to be proposing, and how many, and businesses, if you will, and vice versa on the other side?
Well, what we can tell you is not one business on Jansen Beach.
Okay, that's quite.
So that's a 600 plus jobs.
And businesses.
And yes, 27 float of the homes, and up to 39 businesses right there, and all the damage it'll do there.
Okay.
So that right there is a plus. A thorough investigation needs to happen so that we know exactly what kind of jobs and things. When you find out, what we can tell you is ours is that most of them either start at the Port of Vancouver and go across the Marine Drive, or like ours, which starts at I-5 and goes over. jobs, the businesses would be very small businesses, easily relocated right there in the area, and most of them are like a little mom and pop, you pull it type thing, because it's over by river.
You said investigation, and that's interesting because we got the largest newspaper in, just happens to be in the Portland metropolitan area, the Oregonian, i.e. the largest newspaper in the state of Oregon. They've got staff. They've got staff. They could do all these investigative reporting, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Oh, when was the last time they did an investigation?
But I mean, why haven't they spent time with you? Because in all due respect, there's a comparison. It's a bidding process. I think it's great. But
you mean why have they continually taken sides?
Yeah,
why have they never been fair or honest?
Yeah. Why is that?
Well, you know, there's a lot of people that are making money off of the properties being purchased. And if you're one of them, you need to be watching the fact that some of the properties have gone up by 100, 200, 300, as much as 400% that are known to be taken, that have only been purchased a few years back. Old-time money is married with old-time money. There's a joke. You know, we make money the old-fashioned way. We marry it.
So are you suggesting the old adage of the golden rule? He who has the gold rule. Is that what you're saying?
And they don't care that all these people lose their jobs, or that it's only going to do 1,000 jobs. I mean, you saw Nigel's piece in the Willamette Week, Mr. Rehnquist, where he said, "Gee whiz, it's not 20,000 jobs, it's 1,100." And of those 1,100, many of them are going to be construction jobs from people that come from, no offense, Arkansas or Kansas or wherever.
What about Lou Frederick? Lou Frederick talks about that too.
Yes.
I saw him on the video, and he's very concerned about community issues like environmental, et cetera.
The Northeast Neighborhood Coalition is absolutely against it. Almost every environmental group is against it.
So they're not sensitive to this?
Not at all. Think of it this way. They started with one environmental group, and they canned them and got rid of them and started with people who were less problematic.
Well, I got to be real about this. You got Lou Frederick on one side in that senatorial district. You got what's her name? Tina Kotek, right? She's a representative, and she's part of that
senatorial district. She is a representative who has refused to have even one town hall on Columbia River Crossing, and yet pushes it. She has refused to have any meetings on Columbia River. Yeah, that is Tina.
Why is that so?
And
what's the deal?
I don't know. She's afraid it's going to get a little out of control. And here is the thing: is these meetings, so many citizens show up. Well, if so many citizens show up and have concerns, then that's all the meeting needs to be about. And there doesn't need to be less of them. There needs to be more of them. And she's been asked over and over and over. So you would have to talk with the representative.
Tina, you're invited. Please, Tina, come on over. Please come on board.
Come on out.
Come on board.
You're pushing it. You push it. You push it. You never ask anybody.
What about the Washington side? Where's the mayor on this issue?
Well, and here, let's go back to when you were talking about. You have Lou Frederick, nice liberal. You have John Charles, nice libertarian. You have Tom Milkey, dyed-in-the-wool Republican. You have Benton, dyed-in-the-wool Republican.
Now, who are they?
You have
elected officials.
They're elected officials. Senator Benton, beg your pardon. Tom Milkey is a Clark County commissioner, and you have one spectrum. Representative Ed Orcutt on the Washington side absolutely hate it. And you come back down to the Oregon side, and you had Ben Cannon who spoke against it. You had a lot of Oregon elected officials that are both Democrat and Republican that are all against it. It'll suck every dollar out of the state budgets. And their own Nancy Boyd, the project director, said in Olympia just 2 weeks ago, won't relieve congestion. Okay, so we know it's not going to give us jobs. It's going to take jobs. Won't relieve congestion, and the tolling will ruin our area forever. And then we'll have 7 to 11 years of construction on I-5, when there are alternatives that were not looked at.
Still jobs. You'll still be creating jobs. Right?
That would create jobs. It would be
eliminate
quicker.
Congestion. Will eliminate
congestion.
Save homes.
Save businesses, save home. Not one flagger on I-5. One day it opens. No flaggers on I-5. And then you would have a bridge right next to it within less than a mile. So when you have emergencies, you can easily shift over instead of having to go 6 miles out to 205. The I-205 freeway is full. The I-5 freeway is full. This project started out in 1989 with the legislation, 89. And then in the early 90s with the legislators saying the I-5 freeway is full and over capacity and had failed. And you couldn't even get on it, so they had to do the little market metered ramps. Then they started the series. The one was the I-5 corridor study, and that proved that the freeway, the roads leading up to it, and our rail system were all over capacity, and we had no access back and forth to our ports and industrial areas.
Okay.
Needed to be dealt with. Then you had the I-5 task force that said, don't widen that freeway. Those people are coming from all over instead of, and they're just going to be, though you widen it, they're just going to keep drawing over. You need to strategically locate some bridges.
Look, we got about 2 minutes. It's very, very important. Let's talk about the close now. Okay, in all due respect, the person who's responsible for the editorial page, his name is Robert Cardwell from the Oregonian, Bob Cardwell. He's a good guy. I mean, have you talked with him?
No.
Okay, you need to contact. You need to contact Robert Cardwell. He's the editorial. He's the editorial page editor. Okay, so I would suggest you can contact him. I would suggest that hopefully the viewing audience, if they're very interested in it, as you say, right here, contact you. Email, especially ones who are looking at this piece.
Yes. Email this piece. That's but right. Call them tonight before 5 o'clock tomorrow and tell them CRC needs to stop.
Email this show right here. This way it gets right down to the media. Okay.
CRC needs to stop spending any money on developing their project until federal funds are identified, alternatives have been looked at, and state funds can be identified. Because all the money they are wasting right now can be used on something else.
So you're saying stop the money right now.
The studying's over.
The studying's over. So stop the money. But you're saying that they're still spending the money.
Oh, like water. Like water under a bridge that can't hang.
Jesus Christ.
So yes, and so the legislators, you need to encourage them to have that money stopped immediately, and that we still do need a project, and that project needs to be something that we can support, that is reasonably cost, and that will relieve congestion, will benefit the entire state.
And you're not opposed to building that the option in the bridge.
No, and those people that have been poo-pooing and stuff like that, they've never even heard of the other projects. They have never asked us. And if you belong to a union, you need to talk to your head union person and say, wait a second, 1,000 jobs and we're losing 915, and out of those 1,100 jobs, many of them will be from out of state.
What about folks here being hired?
Well, no, but I mean, that means it's a job loss.
I got you. Oh, I see.
And the damage on I-5.
Look, we're at the end. How do we contact you real quick? We're close.
thirdbridgenow.com or Smarter Bridge Committee. Or Smarter Bridge, excuse me.
Again, Susan, thank you very much. Sharon, Jesus Christ, I'm moving so fast right here. Sharon Nassett, again, Sharon, thanks very much for being with us.
Thank you, Bruce.
And folks, thank you. Again, as George Page always said, back to what you believe in. Have a good one.